right, so stay with me. Let's focus on this for a minute, because it's actually the next section coming up is going to involve this specifically. Getting a little deeper into this. Let me think. Let's start off this way. Let's start if I have -4 plus -3, let's say, right? What's always understood to be in front of something? Like if I write an X, what's understood to be here? A 1. I like the fact you're right. It's a positive sign. You can think of it as that too. There's a plus sign that we don't write, but there's an understood 1 there. You guys with me?
Yeah.
Semi? Not really? How do if I had 2 X's, I'd have to write a 2, wouldn't I? So then if people know that I have X plus X, I have 2 X's altogether. But we don't want to have to keep writing 1 in front of it. We just said, no, let's just, everybody understands that that's 1X, because how many X's do I see there? 1 of them. So I never have to write that 1. I just know it's there. Okay, cool. And that's and there's a lot more going on. I have an understood 1 there. I have an understood 1 exponent. I have an understood 1 under. Oh my God. Let's just understand they're there and save us all some time, right, from writing all this stuff down. You guys still kind of with me? So you're all wondering, well, that's nice, Jeff. What's it got to do with that thing? What's understood to be here? A 1 is in front of there. Okay, you guys still kind of with me? No? I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. Well, let me do this a little more directly. What operation does that kind of describe, this parenthesis really? I mean, this is like -4 plus negative. So what are these 2 signs kind of doing to each other? Let me try this. They're multiplying each other, aren't they? That's why I wanted to put a 1 there. It makes a little more sense when you see a 1 there. You're like, okay, that number is multiplying that number. There's no question. What is positive 1 times -3? -3. So that's why these are the same exact. If I can write a -3 as plus a -3. Those are the same thing. They end up accomplishing the same thing. Okay, so let's get even a little more deep into this. Number line. Let me get myself. So if I have 1 plus 3. Now just bear with me, because we're going to build up to the freakier negatives here in a minute, but I just want to establish some ground rules. 1 plus 3 visually, that means start at 1 and go where? 3 to the right. Cool. So when I add positive, I move this way. So I'm here and I move 1, 2, 3 to the right. That's why 1 plus 3 is 4. It's not ground shaking, but that kind of sets up the idea so I can attack negatives now. So what does it mean then when I add negative? What must it mean?
Going back farther.
Yeah, if I add positive is this way, if I add negative, it better mean going that way, right? Has to mean the opposite, or else what the hell kind of rule is that? Well, either way you do it, you go the same way? No, it doesn't make any sense. So, trying to find some more colors here. Yeah, but there's 4 little dudes going
There's
on.
2 over here.
Yeah, I don't like red. It kind of sticks around too much.
What about
But I'll put up with it. Oh, those are dead. That means a graveyard. Yeah. So just to make sure we're all cool with this, what's -2 plus 4? How would I look at that visually? I would start at -2, and I would go
4.
1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why that's positive 2. There was more positive than negative. That's why the answer comes out positive at the end. Cool. Okay. All right. So for everybody who's in here, whose background has gotten to the point where this is kind of old news, just hanging out, just stare at the wall, whatever you need to do. I want to talk to those people that really need this and don't quite get this. So what about this then? If I had 5 plus -4. So what we just say, adding a positive means going that way. So adding a negative has got to mean going the other way. So if I start at 5. Where am I going to go?
Backwards 4.
Back 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool? So I've established what adding positive and adding negative means. But can you see what would accomplish that same thing? What would you do with 5 and 4 to get 1? What would you do with 5 and 4 to get 1? Subtract. So therefore, this must be the same as that. Or the black marker instead. The skinny one. Oh, cool. All right.
So always when that positive sign is there, you just disregard the parentheses.
It's not that you disregard it. And some of you guys hopefully get this. This is definitely a little bit weird, but this does explain kind of what this is. A positive times a negative is a minus. So that's why when you see plus and negative, you can replace that with a single negative sign. If I'm adding debt to you, am I not subtracting money from you?
Yeah.
So isn't adding debt the same as straight up subtracting? That's why plus and negative is the same as minus that thing. Cool. How we doing? The really nice thing, the useful thing about that is it really helps us understand why when I have negative 2 minus 7, why it still ends up negative. Because how could I rewrite that? Negative 2 plus negative 7. And that kind of makes more sense to us. Negative 2 plus negative 7, of course, must be negative 9. Because positive 2 plus positive 7 is 9.
Why are you putting the parentheses?
Oh, why am I putting the parentheses?
You don't know what a plus and a minus together?
Because that is really confusing. Do you agree? And if you do that, it's really easy as you're writing for that to become a big plus sign, and then you lose the negative. But if you separate the two, if you make sure that we know that this is its own dude, he's his own thing, then we're not going to lose it as easily. Good. That's the only reason I put parentheses there, is because I have multiple operations in a row. We have to make sure that we can see them all. Good. All right, how we doing? Let's see. So adding a negative means you go this way. Adding a positive means you go that way. Adding a negative is also known as straight up. Adding a negative is also known as straight up subtracting, right? So the one thing we haven't discussed is what the hell happens when you subtract a negative. Are you guys still with me, right? So I always want to show you multiple ways to look at something, and you kind of latch on to the way that makes sense. So as a student, when I learned math, I had my own way of looking at it, and I did it that way. The minute you become a tutor or a teacher, you have to kind of expand and go, there's other ways to look at this. I got to present them all until I hit the way that people kind of get, right? So the interesting thing about being a teacher is you learn all the time, because I'm like, okay, you didn't understand that. Let me think of a different way. How about this? No. So it's really kind of neat. What does, if I had like 5 minus negative 2?
5 plus 2.
So one way to look at it is the direct way that I was trying to explain earlier. What is negative times negative?
Plus.
Plus. But subtracting a negative, if you want to go back to money again, and money normally works because we all have to worry about money, I think of minus a negative as forgiving a debt, taking away somebody's debt. So that's why it kind of becomes a plus. You guys kind of with me? Okay, maybe. So visually, let's see. Let's do 5, 6, 2, 1. 5 minus negative 2, and of course you went the wrong way, John. Sorry. I get there someday. 5 minus negative 2. If I subtract a negative, that actually ends up meaning going this way to the right. Right. That means going this way. 1, 2, 7. Because 5 minus negative 2 is 5 plus 2. Cool. This way.
So, adding a negative is that way, and adding a plus is that way?
Definitely. Yeah, good. I like that. So adding a negative is that way. Adding a positive is that one. Now, if you don't like the visual, if it doesn't help you out at all, and you already know how to do this kind of stuff, don't think about the visual. That's fine, right? But you should be able to handle this if I threw it at you, if you understand the process, how it works. Let me give you guys a couple to try. Here we go. Yes, sir.
I was gonna ask, because you say, like, if you have $5 and you subtract or you take away the debt of $2.
So it's not perfect. I'm not going to add the 5 on to what I got. It's not a perfect analogy.
Okay.
Is that where you're going?
Well, I was just, yeah, never mind, I got it. I know it's 5 plus 2, got it.
Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, you're right. I'm not going to all of a sudden have $2 appear magically, but at least it explains why all the negative goes away. Okay. Or at least they're made to remember it. Good. Okay. So try these and call me up if you need some help. So now that we're doing some classwork, you can certainly check yourself with software. You know how to put in multiple signs like that. But what happens with the first one? I'm going to do it both ways. I'm going to do it visually and then directly. Visually, if I add a negative, which way am I going? Start at 7.
To the left.
Add a negative, so add some debt in, and I've got to take away what money I got, right? So I've got to go back. So it'd be 1, 2 places back. It should end up being 5. Now, how do I do this directly? Not visually, but just purely mathematically. Plus and negative is the same as minus, just straight up subtraction, right? So if I just make this 7 minus 2, I get 5. Thank God both ways agree, or else there'd be a major problem. So we do okay with that? So this is how to handle these multiple operations in a row, how to kind of either visually what do they mean, or how do I just write it better in a different way. What about this guy? Visually, thank you for that help. I'll get there eventually. So I kind of gave it away with the way I said this up, but -3, I start here. When I subtract, which way do I go? To the left. So I gotta go 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I go 11. Now, a way to rewrite this that actually uses multiple signs, but if you have any trouble with this, you can certainly rewrite this as -3 plus -8. And does anybody see that better than this? That's 2 negatives, that, you know, -3 plus -8 have to make -11. Now, to me, the best way in the world is if they're opposite signs, you add, listen to me. If they're opposite signs, you subtract, and you put the sign of the bigger one on. So 7 and -2 are opposite signs. 7 minus 2 is 5. The bigger one's positive, therefore the answer is positive 5. Look at this guy. If they're the same sign, that's when you add, and you put the sign back on. So what's 3 plus 8? 11. You put the negative back on?
Negative.
-11. To me, that kind of trumps every other way to do this. If they're the same sign, you add, you put the sign back on. It sounds like a note. If they're opposite signs, you subtract and put the sign of the bigger one on. Right? And why the hell does that make sense? Real quick side note. Why does that make sense? What is -4 plus 4? 0. They cancel each other out, right? So if I had a little more positive, shouldn't the answer end up being positive? If I just had a little bit more, if I had -4 plus 5, of course the answer should be positive, right? You guys kind of with me? Because -4 plus 4 cancels. Any more will push me over the edge into positive territory. Any less, if I had -4 plus 3, is that enough to even cancel? No, it's not enough to get me back to 0, so that's why I'm still negative. Opposite signs. What's 4 minus 3? 1. And what's the bigger one? Negative. So that quick little thing, there's only 2 things there to remember. Same sign, add, put the sign back on. Opposite sign, subtract, put the sign of the bigger dude on. Right, so I want you to remember that, but I also want you to understand why it works. Why does it make sense? Never just purely memorize anything. Always make sure you know why it makes sense. So how do I do this guy here? When I add a negative, I keep doing this myself. Of course, I kind of know what it's going to be. When I start at 6, add a negative, which way would I go? To the left, right? It's making it lower than it was before, so I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, if I want to do this directly, they're opposite signs, so I subtract. 9 minus 6 is 3. But then what's the bigger one? Negative. So when you do that procedure, when you think about opposite signs, what do I do? You just look purely at the numbers. 6 and -9 are opposite, so what's 9 minus 6? I subtract them. It's 3. The bigger one's negative, it must be -3. Sweet. How are we doing so far? Because again, 6 plus -6 would cancel, so now I've got even more negative. I should end up in negative territory. You can see that 6 and -6 cancel. I end up in negative territory because I have extra negative. How are we doing? Okay, cool. So again, anytime in this class, if I go too fast, slow me down. If I go too slow, deal with it. All right. So this last one here, I think I'll skip the visual because I'll give myself much room. What's the most direct way to handle this?
Plus.
Yeah, minus and negative is plus. Now, you got a -7 and a 10 that you're combining. They're different signs, so you subtract. 10 minus 7 is 3. Which one's bigger? 10 and it's positive, so you go positive. Good. So let me say this one more time. Do not allow me to steamroll you. What do I mean by that? Don't just sit there and go, everybody else seems to understand, and I don't know what he's talking about, so I'll just be quiet. If you don't understand, I guarantee there's at least 8 other people that don't either. So if you speak up, you'll be their hero. So do not, please, dear God, do not let me steamroll you. If you want to see another example, if you have a specific one you want me to do it. Say it. Tell me. Cool. I say that because I can see it in some people's faces. They're like, I still don't know what the hell's he talking about. Speak up. Let me know. Okay. So we've kind of just done 2.2 and 2.3. This chapter 2, it's going to be really nice if you have a lot of trouble with this because each section is really just one thing. Section 2.3 is adding integers. Section 2.4 is subtracting integers, right? So they really separate it out. And the nice thing is if you totally understand it, the homework should be quick. Right? If you don't, you need to practice. Okay. So let's try a couple more that's a little more, just a little more involved here. Let's see. So try these here. Call me over if you need some help. Oh yeah, let's do that. So try those three. This might make my job a little easier. Anybody not have this book with them right now? Just a couple of minutes, okay. That'll make it a little easier. Just take some stuff out of there. So you don't have to read my writing that much. Number 3, you gotta be very careful. And that kind of problem shows up in your homework, so I want to make sure I cover it during lecture. What about number 1? What can you do first there?
Yeah.
Make a positive in front of a 10.
Yeah, exactly. Right there, you
Yeah.
notice your eye should kind of be drawn towards the parentheses because of order operations anyway. There's really nothing to do in there, but you can do this multiplication, right? Minus a negative becomes, oh yeah, you're done.
Minus 28.
All right. Minus 28 plus 10 plus 11, and now you just attack it as it comes. All right, negative 28 plus 10?
18.
Negative 18.
Negative 18, yeah, because the negative's bigger.
Negative 18.
Negative's bigger, so it's going to end up negative.
15.
And then negative 18 plus 11, the negative's still bigger,
Yeah.
so negative 7.
Negative 7.
So trust me, on your homework, you certainly could use a calculator for everything and just give it to me. I'm going to say show work. I probably will say redo showing work or something. especially for problems like this. There's not too much work to show me for some of the problems like this, I understand. But for problems like this, I definitely want to see the work. But also you're going to be screwing yourself over because on a test, I'm at least going to have a part of it that you can't use a calculator. So you want to make sure you know how to do it without. What about this guy? What's the first thing I can do?
Plus 13.
Yeah, this becomes what now?
14 plus 13.
Careful.
Minus.
Yeah, plus and negative is the same as
Minus.
straight up subtraction. I like it. So minus 13,
Minus 5.
minus 5, cool. And now you just attack it as it comes. 14 minus 13,
Plus 1.
1.
Minus 4.
Negative 4, cool. They're opposite signs, positive 1, negative 5. 5 minus 1 is 4. The bigger dude is negative. So it becomes negative 4. I like it. I have a buck, I owe somebody 5. Crap, I'm 4 in the hole. That's the other way to look at that. Now, number 3, how did you, this involves a little translation from English to math, right?
Yeah.
Is this, okay?
No.
No. In fact, the funny thing is, it's better than that less than evilness, right? Because I am telling you, subtract this
Plus
from 11. So sometimes people forget, they'll write this down, but what's wrong with that? What am I subtracting from 11? 7. I told you to subtract negative 7 from 11. So here I am subtracting negative 7 from 11. How are we doing there? Yes, sir.
negative 7 plus 11 must be.
I like it. So these negative becomes plus and 18. I like it. Cool. I like it. Okay. Yes, sir.
I did it the way you said not to, and I still ended up with positive 18.
So which way did you do, sorry?
I did the negative 7 minus 11.
Oh yeah, so now if you do that, they're both negative. So they're the same sign, so I add them. 7 plus 11 is 18, but they're both negative, so the answer should be
Can't see that, yeah.
negative 18. So it should be positive 18, right? Okay. So here's the way, so kind of actually I just figured out how to make more physical sense with money.
Okay.
If I paid somebody off, I had a debt of $7, and I paid them off and I have 11 now, and they said, no, I forgive that. I forgive your debt. Here's your $7 back. How much money should I have? I like that. Now I figure out how to make it full and complete. So if I paid somebody $7 because I owed them money, and I have $11 now, and they said, no, it's all right, dude. I'll give you the 7 back. I should have $18, right? So that's subtracting a negative is like forgiving debt, giving money back that you paid somebody off with, right? That didn't sound right, but paid off a debt with, yeah.
So on this graph here, how would you do that?
So if I want to do that graphically, oh boy. Oh, Jeff, you can do it. So remember, subtracting a negative, that was the last visual we talked about. Subtracting a negative ends up going to the right. It ends up becoming positive. 2 negatives make a plus. So you would do 11, and you would just go up 7. Adding a negative makes you go back. So subtracting a negative must make you go forward. Okay, and that's where the visual kind of.
So is those negatives or positives right there that you got on this graph?
I don't put negative signs, so they must be positive. Yeah. So I started at positive 11. Subtracting a negative makes me go that way, because adding a negative makes me go that way. So it must be opposite. Okay. So if you like the visual, there's some homework problems like that. And you can do some of the other ones like the visual. I want you to be able to do both ways. The visual and just the rewriting. Cool. How are we feeling about that? Better or about the same? Don't care? That's not good. Let me see. Okay. Yes, ma'am, sorry.
But I thought the money example doesn't really work, because if you're at 11 and you give somebody $7 and then they give it back, you're back at 11.
No, if I'm at 11, because I gave them $7, and they say, no, it's okay, I should be back at 18.
That was just what's confusing.
I was just trying, I'm sorry, because I was making it up right
Very
there.
abstract.
I've done the money before, but I never tried to do it with like subtracting a negative before, so I was trying to make it up. I think I got it to a point where it makes sense.
I got it, yeah.
What's most important is, can you do the math, but if you have a backup example in the real world, it kind of helps make it make sense. I don't want to make it more confusing though with my examples, that would suck. That would be a bad teacher thing to do. Let me just let you try some out. You might have some trouble with this because we haven't officially talked about it too much yet. We've talked about it a little bit. Try some of these here out here. What operation is going on? Multiplication, good. So I'm going to show you two ways to look at these, two ways to do these. The first way is just straight up direct way. Right? When you have only multiplication, you can actually multiply whatever order you want. Well, let's just go straight. What's 5 times negative 4? Minus 20.
Minus 1.
So that's minus 20. And what's
Plus-
negative 20
plus
times negative 1?
20.
Positive 20, 11. I like it. Cool. The other way to do this is, don't worry about the negatives at first. What's 5 times 4 times 1?
Yeah.
20. And then there's two negatives, so they will
Yeah,
cancel. So you end up with positive 20.
Plus.
You with me? Okay. So here, thinking ahead, what should the answer end up being, positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. Plus.
Let's see, I got, how many negatives do I have? Three. Two of them cancel,
No. Plus.
So you have one.
so the end should be negative. There's the negatives left alive. So that's what helps, if you're not really sure how to kind of look at it and tell, you just go directly at it. What's negative 3 times negative 5?
Plus 15.
Positive 15. And what's positive 15 times negative 2?
Negative 30.
So there you can see the negative. That's that negative that stayed alive. Those two killed each other, and he's over there going, thank God I stayed alive.
Negative 4.
That is what he's actually saying. And this one should not be too bad now. There's how many negatives in the whole thing?
Negative 13.
So he's going to stay alive. There's nobody to kill him. 7 times 2 is 14 times negative 1.
Negative 14.
Negative 14, cool. So let me show you one last thing, and then I want you guys to work on something out of the blue book together, and then we'll head out a little early. Because to tell you honestly, just to make sure you guys know where we are, we've done up through 2-4 now. I mean, they really break it out. In chapter 2, they really break it out. Each section is only one idea. Well, let me give you one that's you might think possibly is really evil. What's that? Yeah, please do God. Number 3, don't start writing -1 100 times. There must be a quicker way to do number 3. Don't tell me yet. Don't do that to yourself. Yeah. We'll see. So just to make sure, one thing, I know I keep saying this type of thing, but this is a class I really need to make this understood. Always feel free to ask me anything. And if you're sitting there and you totally understand the subject at hand, I don't want to hear you sigh loudly. I don't really want to see your eyes roll. Just sit there, deal with it, and realize later when we hit the problem you have, you want everybody else to let you ask questions. So do that same courtesy for everybody else. Very soon we're going to start solving equations, and that's where we have more people have issues. So I think, don't worry, don't ever wish for more trouble because it's coming. So how do I do this first guy?
-2 times -2.
Good.
-2 by plus 6.
Yeah, 2 times 2 is, -2 times -2 is 4. 4 times -2 is -8. And -8 times -2 is 16. Now you could, again, when it's only one operation, when it's only multiplication or addition, you could do it as it comes, or you could do it whatever order you want. So I heard a few people say, this is 4, and of course that must be 4. So 4 times 4, 16. That's perfectly acceptable. That's not breaking rules. It's only multiplication. You can do it in whatever order makes sense. Okay? So this guy, oh,
So it ain't -16.
definitely not, because how many negatives are there? 4. So any pair of negatives kill each other. So those pair killed each other, and those pair killed each other. They're all dead. Yeah.
So if you're doing it times, okay, you have -2 over 4. If you do it anytime and it's an even number, it's going to come out positive.
I love it. So that's the
If
point I'm
it's
trying to
odd,
get
it's
to.
going to be a negative.
I like it. Because here, how many negatives will you have? 3. 2 of them will cancel.
Be a negative.
I can't do that one. One of them's left alive. Yeah. So, and I always want to show you the whole way, and then I'll try to back it up later once we've done a couple with the quicker way. And you do the whichever way you feel comfortable with. So the straight up pure textbook method would be -3 times -3 is positive 9, good. Times -3, -27. The slightly quicker way is, I know the answer is going to be negative. So all I care about is what's 3 times 3 times 3? 27, and you put a negative on it because you knew it was going to be negative, right? There were an odd number of negatives, it's got to end up negative, that odd guy out. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Whichever way is better. This guy, like I said, you don't want to do it this way. Any powers of 1 or -1, there has to be a very much quicker way, because the only possible answer for -1 to a power is 1 or -1, right? Think about it, it's the only thing. Don't give me the answer is -100. 1 times 1 is 1, and we're just doing it a bunch of times. But the idea that you came up with it just a second ago, there's an even number of negatives, so the answer should come out to be positive 1. Cool. So what's negative 1 to the
Negative 1.
that number, is it even or odd? Odd. So there's going to be an odd man out. The answer is negative 1. Do not allow the powers of 1 to freak you out at all. You're like, big number, I don't give a shit. You're odd, so it's going to come out negative.
About that one.
This one.
About the one on the 101. How does it become 1 if it's like negative 1?
So if I started writing this out, you with me?
Yeah.
Watch. If I started writing this out, any pair of negative 1s will make what? Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. The next pair makes 1. The next pair makes 1. And I've got an even number, so there's a bunch of pairs. If I had negative 1 to the 101, there'd be a pair and a pair and a pair, and then there'd be one little dude at the end by himself. So he's like, I'm alive.
I don't know why, for whatever reason, I thought it was like 1 times.
Oh, no. Yeah,
I don't know.
careful. Yeah. Powers are definitely different. And for powers of 1, it's very few options. Yeah, in this case, only 1 or negative 1. So here's what I want you guys to do, and then we'll head out. And just to make this official, I want you to turn this in. You can work together. If you don't have a book, you probably want to work with somebody.
So we're doing the exercises?
Yep. I'm just going to give you a few here. The blue book. Which you guys said most of you have. So really you're being honest.
Is that the blue book?
Blue book, yes. So it's the blue book.
Are we turning it in?
Turning this in.
And we're just doing 6, 14, and 18.
So it's in the blue book. You're turning it in, and you're only doing these problems. You do it on another sheet of paper. Yeah, you with me? Another sheet of paper. Cool. You don't have to rip pages out because I want you to have the rest of them.
Do it in the book,
So it's in the blue book.
do it in the book.
You're going to turn it in. Another sheet of paper. Just these problems. Just a couple more, don't freak out, it's not a billion of these. Page 36 there, for some reason they are using letters, so just. So DHI. Please call me over if you need some help. When you get done, turn it in, you can leave. That's an I, yeah. DHI. Yeah, sure. So they're upstairs in the tech mall. So it's, Tuesday. Either one, they're both co-chairs. So look for go upstairs in the tech mall, right, you've been upstairs? Go down the left side. Go down, because that's where the faculty offices are. Look for the names. I think it's the second to last office up there. Thank you. Cool.
Whenever it's this, I switch it to this is probably
I like it. Not multiple. Not multiplication. Okay. So they're the same sign that you add.
Does that make sense?
What's twice plus 6?
Yeah, because I got confused with that.
Chase that from your mind.
Yeah.
What is it?
Oh, I
But here you just have to replace, you write that, and then in place of X, you put -2. And in place of Y, you put 6. Just like we did before. I give you something with a bunch of variables, but then right after that I say, well, here's what the variables are, so you just plug them in. Cool. Oh, adding a positive. That's the idea. So it almost doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. What am I doing with some number? I'm adding a positive. So I will go find out. Yeah. Another way to do this is like if I was using the sheet in a hole and it lined up, use the pluses like lining up. I still in the hole, but it only be how far down. If I was negative, if I was 18 feet down, lined up 12 feet, I'm still how far down. So that's another, I use that sometimes too, besides money. Mine is like digging down, adding a bunch of line. Because it's got a negative in front, so it says what's behind the square, and then you put a negative. So I wanted to do H and I to see the difference. Here, this is squaring the minus also, there's 2 negatives. Here, this is not squaring the minus, just good. This plus these squared. So there's just how many negatives? It's just that 1 here in front. You can write 5 squared in it. So you can do like this. The negative 5 squared is it's negative. So the square can affect that negative because it's not grouped together. Oh, here, this one. What's negative 5? Positive. Now the negative is getting squared also. Oh. Yeah, the negative is 8. The square can't reach that. You'll get 8 to a lot. Yeah, the negative one is only square. It's what shows up.
What 1.8 do?
Now, it's always a week after we do it, is when it's kind of officially due, and it's by the day of the test.